Let's talk about something that you may have heard about already, but it is so infuriating and absurd and just demented that we absolutely have to cover it. You guessed it. I'm talking about Chris Matthews' insane meltdown on MSNBC, among others. He's certainly not the only one who has been melting down in this corporate establishment media, but he's been the worst. In fact, there are calls for him to resign. Okay. So this is in Newsweek, but it's been all over the place. I mean, all over social media. Everyone's basically covering this because it is so absurd. MSNBC's Chris Matthews faces calls to resign after comparing Sanders' Nevada victory to Nazi Germany's defeat of France. Guys, are you hearing me? What I just said? MSNBC's Chris Matthews faces calls to resign after comparing Sanders' Nevada victory to Nazi Germany's defeat of France. I just can't. I can't. It is bizarre. Okay. This is by Khalida Rahman. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. MSNBC's Chris Matthews is facing calls to resign after he compared Bernie Sanders' victory in the Nevada caucus to the Nazi invasion of France. Like, what? How deranged do you have to be that is what you say on your news channel? Sanders won the Nevada Democratic caucuses with 47% of the vote, the Associated Press reported. As the results came in and Sanders took an early lead on Saturday night, Hardball host Matthews claimed Republicans would release opposition research on Sanders that would kill him if he became the Democratic nominee for president. Not great phrasing there. But Matthews said it was too late to stop him, at one point comparing Sanders' victory over other top Democratic contenders to Hitler's invasion of France. I was reading last night about the fall of France in the summer of 1940 and the general, how do you say that? I don't know. Renew? Sorry, maybe. Sorry that I can't pronounce that. Calls up Churchill and says, it's over. And Churchill says, how can that be? You've got the greatest army in Europe. How can it be over? He said, it's over. So Eli Valley posted this.
I'm reading last night about the fall of France in the summer of 1940. And the general, Renault, calls up Churchill and says, it's over. And Churchill said, how can it be? You got the greatest army in Europe. How can it be over? He said, it's over. So I had that suppressed feeling. I can't be as wild as Carville, but he is damn smart. And I think he's damn right on this one.
Oh, my gosh. It's just absolutely absurd. So, of course, his comments sparked a backlash on Twitter, with some critics noting that it was particularly distasteful, as Sanders is Jewish and had lost relatives during the Holocaust. How absolutely sick and depraved do you have to be that you say something like this about who is potentially going to be the first Jewish president, or is in the contest to become the first Jewish president?
Yeah, and not only that, he's just not good at, like, even outside of that, that analogy doesn't even work, because he's comparing the people choosing something to someone else forcing their will on someone. Mm-hmm. And also, if his analogy was, if he went with that analogy, then that will ended up not working and the person lost in the end. So he should, like, that doesn't even work
yeah.
on that front. But, like, and that's a similar theme I've seen with, I don't know if it was them or so. There's been other, like, references, like, to Nazi Germany, which is so weird that thread keeps coming up specifically for the first, potentially one of the first Jewish presidents, that mm-hmm. this thread of Nazism keeps coming up. It's just such a weird thing that you would think, okay, if we're going to insult him and ignore facts, ignore what the people's popular vote and all that is, at least choose analogies and comparisons that aren't insensitive. Like I won't say anything, but, like, there's definitely, like, things you wouldn't analogize.
Hold on, sorry about that.
There's things you wouldn't analogize or anything like that based on who you're talking about and stuff like that. It's called just being, like, a nice person, just at the base level, before you go and start doing these crazy things. And it goes back to, is, like, was Chris Matthews the one who was afraid of, like, he would get, like, killed, or was that someone else?
Yeah, he was talking about something about being killed in the Red Square or something. Like, it was really weird commentary. He said a few weird, odd things.
Yeah.
I really, honestly, it's deranged. There's no other word for it. It's absolutely hysteria. Absolutely hysterical. Okay, so let's get back to more of Chris Matthews and this absurdity. This is Parker Malloy, who's the editor-at-large for Media Matters. She said, "It is absolutely unacceptable that Matthews is making comparisons between Bernie Sanders, whose family was murdered by Nazis, at Hardball Chris needs to retire immediately." Again, that's Parker Malloy. Reporter Alex Koch added, "I'm really, really insulted by a major pundit on an allegedly liberal news network comparing a Jewish candidate's overwhelming caucus victory to the French losing a battle with the Nazis. Get this lunatic off the air." Koch also noticed that another MSNBC anchor, Chuck Todd, recently quoted an article on air that compared Sanders supporters to members of Hitler's Nazi militia. Oh, gosh. So that was Chuck Todd, who I was talking about earlier. Just now, and I misattributed that one to Hardball Chris. But, they're all winners there at MSNBC, I guess. Not long ago, Chuck Todd read a line from a writer that compared Sanders supporters to Nazi brown shirts. He wrote, "Why the F is this tolerated? These deranged maniacs are shaping public opinion. It's really bad." Chris Matthews has been generous to me on a number of occasions, even blurbing my book. Filmmaker Aaron Chowdhury wrote, "However, his constant references to political violence and total Nazism to describe Bernie Sanders' campaign is beyond the pale. Hardball Chris must resign or be fired from MSNBC." Walker Bragman, friend of the show, a journalist, added, "At Hardball Chris just compared Bernie Sanders and his movement to Hitler and the Nazis on national television." He wrote, "Sanders, who is Jewish and lost family in the Holocaust, is on track to be the nation's first Jewish president. Enough with this. Matthews should not be on the air." Krishan Patel added, "Chris Matthews just compared Bernie Sanders, a Jewish man whose relatives were killed by the Nazis, to the Nazi army. He should be fired immediately." Sanders' communications director, Mike Casca, also took to Twitter to respond to Matthews' comment. "Never thought any part of my job would be pleading with a national news network to stop likening the campaign of a Jewish presidential candidate whose family was wiped out by the Nazis to the Third Reich," he wrote. "But here we are." MSNBC and Sanders' team have been contacted for comment. We rail on the corporate media all the time. We're deadly serious about how terrible they are, but we often joke about how terrible they are, and we're completely just opposite. But this is so disgusting, even for corporate media, even for someone like Chris Matthews. This is just, I don't even really know what to say. What is he thinking about? Is this because of Trump derangement syndrome? Is this what's happening to people's political minds, especially these TV reporters?
Well, and what does that put in people's heads? Is like there's this fear of when Trump does his things and rallies or whatever and says stuff, people are afraid that he's going to incite stuff and everything like that. Like, what are you putting in people's heads when you, on this major network, go and say, "Hey, that guy, his supporters, they kind of remind me of Nazis. You guys should keep an eye out for that." That's a extremely dangerous thing to put out into the public sphere when, whether or not you're portrayed as someone who is, someone to be trusted, who you should take their word for on certain things, perhaps, and all that. So I think that's just like a dangerous thing to say, outside of being also insensitive and like just an insane like phrasing and all that.
Yeah, I completely agree. It really turns my stomach. I do agree with the calls for Chris Matthews to resign or be fired. This is not okay. Everybody gets heated and has opinions in politics, but it is not okay at all.
Yeah, and it's not like people are like trying to get him to resign so like, oh, we can get that moderate voice out. Like, obviously if he resigned, they're going to replace with someone similar, but like there has to be at least some line. If there's not a line, then like what are people at some point? CNN is just becoming Fox News at that point. Well, I guess you could argue they're pretty much there, but as far as I still think that there's a little bit of a difference in that Fox News can often like almost be insightful in some of the things that they say or even don't say, and this is starting to get into that area as well.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.